Greetings agents, this is the Mediocre Gamer. Thank you for tuning in today, I really appreciate it. I'm really glad that you're here and I hope that you are doing well. If you find my videos helpful, please remember to subscribe, like, comment and share. If at any point during this video you wish to skip ahead, then please check the description for the timestamped chapters. Today we are talking about tank builds. Now the idea of a tank build is that it sacrifices firepower for durability, so it has a lot of armor and a shield generally to help it out. Now in the Division 2, up until recently, the game mechanics in the Division 2 haven't really allowed tanks to be utilized as intended. And what I mean by that is, in my opinion, and I'm sure others would agree, the idea of a tank is something or someone who can draw aggro from the hostile forces and absorb damage while it is taking that aggro. That then allows your DPS players to then perform their function, which is to apply DPS without the risk of them having to take damage, because generally speaking, a DPS player doesn't have much armor. So the idea there is that the tank will draw aggro, it will then be able to absorb that damage while the DPS players apply damage to the target and kill it before the hostiles have a chance to kill the tank. So what generally happens currently, or up until recently, is that you enter combat and usually the AI will target whatever enemy is doing it the most damage, which is usually the DPS players. And it was very hard for tanks to be able to get that threat away from the DPS players and effectively tank. There was really no mechanic in the game to do this, which basically made tanks fairly underutilized, unless it was in a very specific case, like in a raid or something. So that all changed at the start of the season with the implementation or the addition of the Imminence Armament brand set, which has a 2-piece bonus of plus 100% threat. So what I was thinking was that I would try to put a tank build together, or in this video 2 tank builds together, in an attempt to utilize that mechanic of a tank being able to draw aggro from hostiles. Okay, so the first build I have for you is a Foundry Bulwark build. So 4 pieces Foundry Bulwark, mask, gloves, holster, knee pads, and 2 pieces of Imminence Armaments. Now unfortunately, Imminence Armaments drop with a red weapon damage core, so they can be quite tricky to farm for the correct minor attributes, because what you want is as much armor on this build as possible. So what you're going to need to do is farm a chest and a backpack of Imminence Armaments, and then you're going to need to get it to drop with a chest talent that you want and a backpack talent that you want. And then you're also going to need to get it to drop with maybe armor regen as a minor attribute, so that you can then recalibrate the weapon core to an armor core. And if you can do that, then it'll be quite a tanky build. This one here that I'm showing you, which would be fully optimized. The build I'm using in the footage is nowhere near fully optimized, and it has just some really random stats on it because that's what dropped, and I don't really have the time to constantly farm countdown or constantly craft gear to try and get the correct pieces to drop. But anyway, this one has 2 million armor and it has 2.5% regen per second. Now, if we have a look at a 4-piece Foundry Bulwark gear set, so 2 pieces gives us plus 10% total armor, 3 pieces give us plus 1% armor regen and plus 50% shield health, and then the 4th piece gives us makeshift repairs. So whenever you or your shield take damage, 25% of that amount is repaired to both over 10 seconds. So obviously that is tailored around survivability, which is what you need in a tank build. Now as far as the chest and backpack go for the Imminence Armaments, thank you to the devs who came up with that name. That is really infuriating to have to say over and over again. So as I was saying, here are some possible chest talents. So Vanguard, deploying a shield makes it invulnerable for 5 seconds and grants 45% of your armor as bonus armor to all other allies for 20 seconds. or unbreakable. When your armor is depleted, repair 95% of your armor. So there are 2 chest talents I could recommend. As far as backpack talents go, here's 2 that I could also suggest. So Ad Rush. Whenever you are within 10 meters of an enemy, gain 20% bonus armor for 5 seconds, and that stacks up to 3 times. So that's really good if you're getting in close to the hostiles with your shield up, drawing that aggro, you'll get tons of bonus armor. The other option would be Protector. So when your shield is damaged, you gain plus 5% bonus armor, and all other allies gain 15% of your armor as bonus armor for 3 seconds. So there's some combinations in there that also not only help you out, but also help your teammates out, which is really handy when you're playing in a group, because your DPS players will love you for you providing them with bonus armor. So there's some options there. Minor attributes, I would suggest that you spec into armor regen as a priority, possibly, has pro, maybe even explosive resistance, but, try and make it armor regen as your primary minor attribute. So you can see there with the Imminence Armaments 2-piece gives us that 100% threat. The only other item in the game that generates threat is the decoy, and that can only be increased through expertise. So at the moment, the most that it could get up to would be 30% threat. So you can see 2 pieces of this is well above it. Okay, so the second build I have to show you is more along the lines of a high-end build. So we've got 2 pieces of golem gear, 1 Gilligard, 1 Bellstone, and then once again 2 Imminence Armaments pieces. So this one has about the same armor as the Foundry Bulwark, almost 2 million. It has heaps more regen though. It's got 4% regen as opposed to 2.5%. And because high-end gear have 2 potential minor attributes, you can spec into more attributes here. So you've basically got almost double the amount. So on each piece there, you can spec into armor regen and Hasbro if you want to, or something like that. Maybe put protection from elites on your mod slots, on your 3 mod slots. So you can get your hazard protection up to about 70%. You can get protection from elites up to about 40%. If we just have a bit of a breakdown of the build. So 2 pieces of golem gear will give us 1.5% armor regen. 1 piece of Gilligard will give 5% total armor. The chest is the named Pointman chest piece, which it comes with perfect vanguard. So deploying a shield makes it invulnerable for 5 seconds. And grants 50% of your armor as bonus armor to all other allies for 20 seconds. So it's a 5% increase over the regular version of Point. Then we've got 1 piece of Bellstone for 1% armor regen. And then once again, some talents you could consider on the backpack there could be Protector, Ad Rush, or Galvanize. Specialization I would recommend would be the Technician, because that allows you to run the Artificer Hive. So that sends out micro electro booster drones that expend themselves to increase allied skill efficiency and refresh their duration. Periodically releases a drone whilst holstered. This drone affects only your skills. So basically it buffs your shield. You'll only be at skill tier 1 because you get 1 skill tier from running Technician, but it'll basically buff your shield by about 30% every 10 seconds, which is very handy when you're in combat. Crusader Shield, so if you have 6 armor cores, it will be at tier 6, which gives you plus 60% active regen, plus 250% shield health, and plus 40% holstered regeneration. So it should have a bit over 5 million health, which once again also comes in handy. From utilizing the 2-piece Imminence Armaments in-game, it did appear as though the 100% threat was working, as the enemies did seem to take a fancy to me. And even though I was using a really unoptimized build, it did seem to hold up pretty well in heroic content when I was tanking sort of 3 or 4 enemies at once. So I honestly don't know why the devs made that brand set drop with a red core. I mean, it should have been a blue armor core, unless I'm missing something, unless I don't understand how that brand set is supposed to be used, but I would have thought that they would have made it drop with an armor core rather than a weapon core. But anyway, there are my 2 builds. I would be keen to hear your feedback, any thoughts and or suggestions that you may have on how to improve these builds. Please leave them in the comments. That's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe out there, agents, and take care.